I'm just going to recite it once again.
Yes, please.
Zindagi Tamasha bani, Duniya Dahasa bani. Sarmad, it was indeed a kind of emotional journey going through that movie. कब से तेरा राह देख रही थी ये आंखें अब आए हो इस पार तो जरा सा ठहर जाओ तार तार थी रूह मेरी ऐ मेरे रफुगर तेरे हाथों से सिल दिया है दामन मेरा अब आए हो इस पार तो जरा सा ठहर जाओ. Since this is in continuation with our previous fundraiser program of Sapan first program, so I would request Beena to share something about the philosophy and the concept of the Sapan, the South Asia Peace Action Network, with all of us, and then we can go ahead with the program. So, Beena.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you so much for hosting this meeting for us, and it's wonderful to see everyone. I really appreciate everyone for joining. So Sapan, for those of you who don't know, is a South Asia-wide coalition of activists, journalists, people from all kinds of sectors, students, and what do we have? Architects, everybody, writers, editors, artists. And it's a intergenerational, cross-border, cross-diasporic alliance of, we have over 50 organizations that have endorsed our founding charter, which is online, and you can, anybody who wants can endorse it. And we also have more than, I just put that on the screen for people, and we also have more than, I don't know, 400, 500, several hundred people who've endorsed it as well. Besides, that's the founding charter. And it's a very simple 3-point agenda that we want soft borders, we want human rights and dignities for all, and we want the governments of the region to cooperate. And that is part of that, this cross-border art. Art should not be censored. We should be able to watch our things. And so it's in several languages. And to endorse it, you can go to the link, and it's at southasiapeace.com. If you go to this southasiapeace.com, you'll see it. It comes on the homepage, which is right there. So that's a very, very brief introduction of Sapan. We started it in March 2021 after an online meeting of over 50 activists, over 80 people from India, Pakistan, and around the region. And it's all volunteer run, and we have some wonderful, wonderful people on board, and I'm not going to name them all right now, but I'm really happy. It keeps me going. It's inspiring, and it's really wonderful to have you all here. So that's very briefly about Sapan, and back to you, Arvinderji.
Well, thank you, Beena. Like I said earlier also, this is in continuation with our last week's program, the first fundraiser program, and I'm so happy that Sarmad, you have made a strong foundation for this Sapan's initiative. And thank you all the donors who have contributed for this cause. Now, I would request everyone who's present over here to introduce yourself in the chat box, in the message box, and put your questions there. And then one by one, we'll be inviting everyone to share your questions with Sarmad and, of course, Samiya. Like Sarmad, you all know, is a very prominent South Asian producer and who's reached up to Oscar and Cannes. And we competed together, Sarmad, at Cannes. My movie was also there, The Masquerade, with Manto, Joyland, Zindagi Tamasha, Kamli, and so many more. Samiya, it's another legend on the planet Earth. A famous television Pakistani actress and the grandniece of expert actress Uzra Bhatt Sahiba and Zora Sehgal. I had a very personal encounter with both of the legendary, the actors. They performed at Narshala, and it was a beautiful cross-border love in Amritsar, and I was a part of that, play. So Samiya is highly appreciated for her anchor role in the drama serial Meri Zaat Zarai Benishin, and then she's known across the South Asia, not only in the South Asia, but of course, across the globe, and done a beautiful role in this Zindagi Tamasha. Samit, before we go to the audience and ask them to raise your questions and talk to you about the Zindagi Tamasha. Honestly speaking, about this movie, when I watched it, I found this movie to be beyond the labels of the religion. Like what you try to portray is what is happening in Pakistan or relating to Islam, but what I see in India, it's more of a Sikhism, the fake rituals what we follow over here. So it was even more closer to those fake rituals in the religion which I'm born to. So it has really connected, and the way it has been portrayed, the way it has been communicated, the way it has been directed, it's amazing. But like I have been also known as kafir in my religion. And I'm pretty sure that this kind of controversial, this kind of very sensitive issue which you have tried must have brought a very sensitive change in you, in your surroundings. And living in Pakistan, of course, is a challenge. And you must have faced challenges while shooting this movie. Can you just share something about that?
First of all, thank you, Ji. Thank you, Sapan. I think it's a privilege and an honor to be a part of this initiative. I think if there could be one message that the whole of humanity would just keep as like a key message or a key motto to life, it's peace, to live and let live. And it's such a beautiful, big world, and there is enough room and air for everyone to breathe and live, If I may, with your permission, ask Samiya to narrate what I and Samiya were together on one of these lit fests in Lahore. So before we go into the controversy, just talking about how we dealt with it, Samiya, if I may give you a cue, how you compared it to a chidi ka boat, that you said कि ये narrative जो था. So please, will you, like while we're making the film, the approach, the ethos of it?
मुझे तो throughout when I read the script and then when we were actually on set shooting for it, it just seemed like something very, very delicate, very sensitive. And I'm not talking about the religion aspect of it, but the character, the central character whose wife I am playing, that was played by Arif Hassan Saab. That is a very sensitive, vulnerable person. And I know that we all felt very protective about him because you can feel his pain, his bonds with his loved ones, and how all of that slowly starts to fragment around him for no reason that he can comprehend. So yes, it did feel like a little fledgling had fallen out of its nest and we had to protect it.
Yeah, so I think that sort of so beautifully sums up the ethos or the life pulse that we all were very cognizant of, and also I think it didn't take any effort to exude it or to make that kind of bond. It was a very small scale filmmaking, to be honest. It was as indie as this day as it can get, but that indie translated into this honesty and intimacy where we weren't aware of, okay, the mohalla became the shooting studio and the mohalla owned us. We owned the mohalla, that house we were shooting, how it lent itself to the whole story. Then shooting amidst the actual celebrations of Eid Miladun Nabi. I mean, just that privilege I feel that you have, that, now you are just setting a narrative, but actually letting the city become a character. And by city, I just mean a familiar setting. I mean, Lahore is where I've grown up. Lahore is what I know. Lahore is what I have, this, I mean, not to, fall for too many poetics, but this, dharti, the mitti, I mean, that's where I come from. So I understand it, I feel. So one thing that I think we were very, very also aware of, including the crew and the cast, that, oh, this is a delicate story, a very personal story. We didn't go with daggers or like flags, oh, we have to bash, any the left or the right or whatever, you know. I mean, there were no like there were no navigation set to it. It was just like a very personal story. And one thing that I was again very conscious of, and I thought that, you know, through workshops and through just the essence of what like all the cast and crew that came on board, we didn't want to be touristy. We didn't want to be sensational. That was never the spirit of this story, at least. And hence, when somebody says the controversy or whatever happened, you know, I would not want to recap that. I think I'm almost bored with it, to be honest. It has really taken over, you know, the film. I feel people have not seen the film, and the talk about the film or what its merits and demerits could possibly be, they are just ignored. And we only talk about, you know, what the film was thrown under. So, yeah, I mean, the journey of making the film, I have very beautiful memories of. I think it was excruciating. It was winters. It was long hours. It was a lot of great team spirit. And we swam rather smoothly all the way to our premiere, the world premiere that happened in Busan. And then the win at Busan, you know, the first outing of the film, and we got the best film at Busan. But then the storm happened, and I think I would actually like to have some partial amnesia about it now.
Oh, right. So, Beena, would you like to step in now to share your feelings about what you watched at Zindagi Tamasha?
Yeah, no, I just want to say that I saw the film at Sarmad very kindly invited me to the film festival. I think the online film festival at in Austin, I think it was in Austin, Texas, a couple of years ago. And it was actually really amazing experience to have to join this virtual film festival. And I was riveted by the film, and I found it really moving. I found it very difficult to watch also at times. My mother, actually, who's 83 in her 80s, she couldn't watch it because she found the tension too much. She found that you know, there was no violence, outright violence, except for a little bit, but she found the emotional tension was too much for her, so she left halfway. And it was just, I loved the way that I think, like you said, the city became a character. And I think one of the things about this film that stands out, about all your work that I've seen that stands out, is how it's goes beyond binaries. It's very hard to like put it in a box and say it is this or it is that, or the characters also. Like there's a lot of nuance. And I really, really appreciate that, because we need the nuance. We need to get beyond the binaries. We need to get beyond it's either this or that. It can be this and that. He can be a very religious, devout person and appreciate music and appreciate and like to dance. You know, why not? And we all know, and I think I agree with you. I mean, I don't even want to get into the controversy. Let's, you know, like that's the people who do that, do it for their own political agendas. It's political agendas for power politics. So we don't need to get into that. We can appreciate the film. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to give you this opportunity to showcase it, and to have more people have the opportunity to showcase it, to see it, so that it reaches the audience it deserves, I think.
So nice. Absolutely. You know, and now we have a question from Dr. Saima Firdaus. I think probably she's here. Alika, can you just unmute her so that she can raise a question? Like Hassan went to the police, and Dr. Saima, are you there? Yeah.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Sarmad. And hi.
Hi, Saima.
Yeah, it's so nice. Thank you so much, Beena, first of all, for providing this amazing platform. And Sarmad, I am a fan since forever. I think I met you too when you came to Harvard. And so Samiya Mumtaz, you know, the play he was talking about was Meri Zaat Zara Be Nishan. And afterwards too, Aapke to khair bahut hi zabardast kamal performances. So I loved it. I loved the movie because I'm also, mera jo background is from I would say middle class, and you know, I made up till Harvard, so I went through a lot of things that you're trying to tell in all of your projects. So one thing which I loved, the most important scene that I felt, was when he was there and he was trying to naat padna cha rahe hai, and the guy is saying कि मैं नारा चलवा दूं, मैं नारा लगवा दूं, and you can palpate कि अभी क्या हो सकता है, and the way that character kind of showed that fear in his eyes, and that those like 2 minutes of the camera work, because I'm an artist myself. It was priceless. I think even just that scene is priceless, very well done. And it is such a shame that this level of movie or eye-opening thing which everybody knows, हमारे society में everybody knows this is what is happening, but nobody wants to accept it. और इस तरह की चीजें we are not letting it, पाकिस्तान में वो openly चल नहीं रही हैं. So this is such a shame. And again, people like you and Bina, and I know it's been difficult, but you are just on it and you're doing it. And I really, really appreciate you for that. And thank you for that. So, and I loved your character. I loved it. I loved how you did it. Beautifully done, very sensitive. I loved it. I've never seen you like that. And I think this also will give a chance for people to kind of come out with what they really want to do in their life. I think that was a very brave step of you to do that character. So I really want to appreciate for that too. And Samiya, you are like, आपके बारे में तो मैं बोलूंगी नहीं, because आप क्या बंदा बोले, इतनी जबरदस्त है आप और आपकी acting. So my question was कि आप जो
Daddy, मेरी online meeting है, मैं अभी बात नहीं कर सकता.
So that guy, जब उसने देखा कि CD वाला, when he's doing these kind of shows, so he went to the police and he kind of reported that guy. So that was the point where I felt like, what is your thought behind that move? Was it that he was trying to be somehow morally correct and better than that guy, or were you trying to portray that, or were you trying to portray whatever is happening in those private parties where people are able to express themselves the way they want to? Are you condemning that through your movie, or what should be the take for an audience?
I think I would like Samiya and I to collectively answer that. I think overall tone of the film is not, it's not, we're not prescribing people. I mean, the idea was not to, I feel that, we talked about it in the last Zoom session also, that burden on the artist to correct things and to be politically correct and to send the right messages. Of course, it should be done. You could not, we can't be living in a world where we're endorsing the wrong messages all the time. But then when something, again, I'll be a little immodest, when something is so nuanced and so subtle, then also I want correct representation. I want some messages or not to be, they should not be looked at as messages. They're slices of life. They're incorrect, maybe. They're not how you wish them to be, And I think that became a big question mark. I remember in our, the actors workshop that we had, they were like, that's one place where we are really throwing the protagonist under a bus, because that's not even gray. He goes against his best friend. But isn't that how life is? Like, there are friendships, spanning over decades, and suddenly something snaps and, you do something which is so off character, So I think the lens was never of, say, morality or what we are preaching, because I think that's exactly what the political tool has been for, banning and censoring art, that as if anything that we show is preaching or propagating an agenda. And I think that's a very limiting and a suffocating phenomenon to be applied to art. The conversations on art could go in any which direction, but art should not bear the burden of being woke and correct all the time. I'll be honest. I think it's a selfish thing to say. So I think that even if it comes across as, oh, he did something that is a wrong message, but I want my character to go through that arc, He has guilt about it or not, he hides it or not. That's for you to discover, And I think we, again, immodestly saying, the screenplay is not very cause and effect either. It's not one event leading to the other. For example, Samiya's character, we never explain, but she has this weird kind of premonition about what's going to happen. So over to Samiya. I would like Samiya to sort of take it from here. I think, yeah.
I remember when we were working on the script, when we were doing our readings and everything, there was never a label that any of the characters was trying to live up to. We were just exploring what, as a human being, without any sort of prescribed definition of who we represented, what we were doing was we were just trying to understand as human beings what the events around us, how they were impacting us and how we were reacting to them. So it wasn't as if any of us had sort of, okay, so I am X there and X behaves like this, therefore I'm now going to behave like X. No, I was behaving as my character. So whoever I was going to react to the issues in front of me. This is something which I also find sometimes very amusing and sometimes confusing, because when we are asked as actors, so what did your character symbolize in the larger, I mean, as a woman? I was asked, I remember in Texas by a student, so when you did this play, did you see yourself as representing the country? And how I said, no, as an actor, I only knew what the character is going through. I don't know about the rest of the story. That is for the audience to interpret and bring layers to. As an actor, it's a very human, very personal story.
So true.
May I just add a small thing?
Please.
The only thing I'd like to add here is that, like, say, for example, the dynamic between Samiya and, I mean, her character and the male lead. I mean, the things that, like she understands, things that she just knows, like when everybody has like blazing guns against this guy, she's like, acha, gaane ke liye dance kita si. Like, that's her question. Like, she's more interested in he dance kar liya. And then later when, he's wearing like a tight sweater, so she almost body shames him. Like, so, but isn't that the kind of banter that, or like that kind of mild humor that will definitely go in a private or a personal setting between characters? But I feel that right now we've also started becoming too clinical and too aware of ideas that belong in, of course, like public discourse, policy making, but they cannot be applied to art so vehemently. Art shall pose questions. It shall give you authenticity. It shall give you connection and relatability. But at the same time, I think, for example, that scene when she says, "Enne motape te dance karte tanu sharam nahi aayi," she says something like that. Isn't that what a wife would say? Now, if one were to pick that line out of context and now go around saying, "Oh, this film is about body shaming." No, the film is not about body shaming. Only today, for example, somebody took a screen grab, one of the donors, and put it on Instagram. And then I requested that person to take it off because he had put a clip of me dancing. And I was like, no, please don't do that. Ethically, that's not correct. But, now you take it out of context. And now people will just have a field day with it because, that is also, how you want to go really, like, you want to dissect art into nugget size, chewable, out of context, little social media, distributable stuff, and just have conversations. And I think some of those conversations are completely hollow and noisy and don't get us anywhere, So yeah, maybe I've said more than I should have. But yeah.
No, Samad, you're right. And Samia, you're right. That's a beauty of an actor, that how she or he conceives the character, that particular character. And then the part of the audience to unlayer those layers and see the different dimensions which the director or which the writer or which the actor wants to convey through the spoken or even the unspoken words. And before I ask Sabah Kareem Khan to raise her question, Ehsan Hadi Saib is asking, when are you going to release this movie in US or on the Netflix? So, and I think probably Sapan is blessed that we could share the link with our esteemed the donors across the globe.
It was so funny, like how social media also works, like particularly Instagram. People only look at the picture, like although the directions are there, like, the addresses are there, but people will be like, how do we watch it? Is it available in India? Is it available in the US? Of course, it's a global platform and you can access it from anywhere. But of course, this was a tight window. All I would say for now is that, yes, we definitely would like it to be widely available and for a longer time period. We'll figure some details out, inshallah, and yeah, it will be. It will.
And I promise you, I'll organize your premiere in India.
Thank you. And Netflix and Amazon, we did cover the last time that, you know, this whole idea that it's very easily accessible, it's an easy solution. It's not. There's a lot of policy, programming, too many barriers, too much red tape, too much politics also. I mean, I did mention it, and I'm only mentioning it for the sake of a question and thought only. All Netflix acquisitions from Pakistan are routed through the India office. Yeah. And I would not say more. And it's complicated to say the least.
But now, Sarmad, you can rely upon you have your representative in India.
Yeah. So please,
and now can I invite Ekta Sabah Kareem Khan to come and she wants to thank you also, and she wants to raise a question also. Sabah, please unmute yourself.
Sarmad, hi. It's so nice to see you again.
Hi, Sabah.
Yeah, and I have to admit that I'm still just processing what I watched in the most powerful and beautiful ways. But so the question is probably a bit fragmented, and there's so many more, hopefully for a later conversation. But I also just want to thank Sapan, because I genuinely, when I'd met you in January, Sarmad, I hadn't thought that we would be able to watch the film at any point in the near future. So I think this is such a, I'm just so grateful for that step in this direction. And I said this to you yesterday, but just kind of building upon that, I suppose my comment first of all is that it's so nice, similar. I remember jab Kamli bhi release hui thi, this is how I'd felt, that with everything that Pakistani cinema and storytelling has, sort of all the flack it's received in the last couple of decades, especially often in comparison to Indian cinema and then global cinema, it's just so reaffirming to see something like Zindagi Tamasha, because you feel like it's not trying to be what someone else has done. It's not trying to create caricatures. It just feels like it's yet another step after Kamli in the direction of us coming into our own, despite all the obstructions. And I think someone said this earlier on the conversation, but kal se main yehi baat soch rahi hu that, I don't want to really talk about the politics around it, but this is such a special occasion to be able to talk about the film itself. And I think that's beautiful. So my question for Samiya and you both is that, it's somehow, I suppose, often easier when there's lots of dialogue, when there's clunky, kind of heavy verbiage attached to a scene. But as a director, Sarmad, you often rely on these quieter, sort of silent moments that to me felt, even with Zindagi Tamasha, felt so poetic, felt so poignant, and conveyed everything that they had to convey. So I suppose the first question is that as a storyteller, what do these quietly fierce moments, these really intimate moments bring to the kind of storytelling that you undertake? And then to Samiya and you both, because so many of your scenes, Samiya, where the space is restricted, your movement is restricted, and then obviously words are also economical. And Sarmad, in that cameo of yours, which, I can only agree with, I think, what Saima said earlier, it's just, I don't know how much longer it's going to linger with us, but it just pops out at you. And of course, I'm not surprised that you bring that to it. But again, us scene mein gana chal raha hai, if I'm not mistaken, but there's no dialogue, there's no heavy dialogue. So as actors, what are you drawing upon to act when there are no verbal crutches? So I suppose my question is part director and then part actor, Samiya and you both. But again, thank you so much for this film, and thank you to Sapan as well.
Thank you, Sapan. If I can just sort of quickly, give a little sort of recap of the process. I think one of the key collaborators, one of the key life forces to this film was my screenwriter, Nirmal Banu. And young person, a fresh film grad. And I saw one of her short films, which was a thesis project. And honestly, we know that, for example, any book on filmmaking, the first page would always tell you simple things like show, don't tell, right? But again, I think most of us are trained in TV, and or TV is what we are known for. And TV is so much about telling all the time, right? Stating the obvious, having the voiceover in your head, having a flashback of the same scene, you know. So it's telling, telling, telling. So I think it did come from that place where, you know, I was like, okay, now when I really attempt a film, then, you know, what do I skip? What do I leave off screen? And I think the first thing that I thought of was dialogue, which, you know, no, spoken word is one of the tools, but it's not the, you know, the whole syntax cannot rely on that. And then comes in Nirmal Bano, who loves silence. She's a very silent, quiet person also. Like, you know, how she lent her personality, her kind of stoic, beautiful mind that, you know, because, you know, so I came up with this idea. It was really like I had three, you know, how one would say the centerpieces, or like, you know, some big events in the film. But then I gave it to her. I was like, you know, now you let it breathe. You adopt it, really, like surrogate the idea. And she didn't only surrogate it, she really gave it, you know, good upbringing. She breathed life into it. And then she brought back something which I was also very skeptical about on the first read. I was like, but I mean, I don't know where we're going with this. And hence, so what I'm trying to get at is that, you know, it wasn't like, oh, we are going to go against the formula, but organically, you know, like, and then in the workshop, for example, I like to keep pre-production extremely democratic, and where, you know, everybody contributes their idea. Samiya was not only, you know, an actor, Samiya was also the dialect coach or dialect advisor for Arif. Arif is, like, so to say, like an Urdu speaking person. I mean, he knows Punjabi, but he's from Karachi. He's a proper Karachiite, you know. So, I mean, the first big filter was, how about everybody tells me what dialogue can be done without, you know? And that's how communication is. And particularly under duress and under stress, you know, when you're communicating, either it's silence or it's a lot of galam galoch, as it happens on the rooftop between him and the Maulvi, you know. So I think that whole non-reliance on dialogue actually grew out of a process, not out of the need to make a statement. And then when you have actors like Samiya, and you had even newer actors, but them just, you know, first grappling and then completely understanding the idea of what a performance for camera is. It's not TV, it was stretched out. The tedium was always there. That one scene when Samiya falls and Arif picks her up, you know, we went for it like at least 6-7 times. And that was a long take. It spanned over minutes and minutes, you know. It was real time. So I think somewhere we also discovered that language, that the tedium, the silence, the real time feel would be, you know, just there, you know. It was very tough to edit this, by the way. Like anytime I had to bring the duration down, it was very tough. The cut that I showed at Busan was close to 2 hours and, I don't know, 38 minutes. And now this cut is down to 2 hours, 2 hours, a few minutes, if I'm not wrong, you know. So it was tough. And then over to Samiya for the other question.
I remember when, hi Sabah. I remember when we were starting this shoot, and what was really helpful was when Sarmad said, I want to explore the awkward moments after the dialogue. I want to linger in that space. And I thought, what? Because my training is in theater, and we are told to pick up the line before your cue ends. So there are no gaps. Otherwise, we're always told that there will be a lag. The energy will drop. And this was the complete opposite that we were being asked to do. So I wasn't very sure about how this would work, but I was very excited to be doing something completely different for the first time, and to let the awkward silences linger. That was a lot of it. It was a challenge, and I actually enjoyed doing that because you get to feel much more as an actor. Otherwise, if you are asked to cut as soon as the dialogue goes, you haven't really let the moment sit emotionally with you. Here we were capturing that sitting of the moment, which was, I think, how the process worked.
So true. I would just sum up this, कि खामोशी के वो चंद लम्हे चमक और दास्ताने हिजर बयां हुए. That is what I truly appreciated in your movie, the space of the silence. And it conveys more than what the dialogues can, do. And honestly, beautifully videographed, beautifully, it's done exemplary, beautifully. And now, before I ask Swati Sharan, she wants to raise this question. And the similar question was in my mind about the toxic relationship. So Swati, are you there? And if you're there, please come and...
Hi, Swati.
Hi. Yes, hi. I was just wondering, through this film, would I be on and assuming that you are trying to display different elements of toxic masculinity that we might see in society?
I would like to say yes. And I would also like to say that, I would not want, say, a feature-length thing, be it a film, be it a novel. I mean, that kind of condensation, I feel is oversimplification. Of course, I mean, we are talking about masculinity and the toxicity around it. Clearly, it's one of the themes. But if I say that, it was reverse engineered like that, no. I just wanted a character who goes through this personal, emotional journey of damage and troubleshooting and then damaging others and damaging himself and then just resigning to the design of fate. And through that, I think, of course, I mean, one of the themes is the idea of gender and the binaries that we want for our convenience. But I would also say, yeah, I mean, it's a lot more. Like there would be too many other boxes if one were to analyze it. Right, Samiya? I mean, maybe.
Yeah, I want to also come in here. It's not only about toxic masculinity, it's about the sensitive side of masculinity as well. So it is I think the range that we are looking at. Because Arif's character and even yours, Sarmad, is not about toxicity at all. So yeah. That's all I would say.
By toxic masculinity, like I don't just mean that that the character themselves is displaying it, but rather that the attitude that's being projected onto them. Like, say, for example, like why can't a guy dance like dance in the tumak style or something? You know what I mean? Like, who decides these things, right? Like, so it's almost like a transplanting of toxicity on somebody's identity. Like, who decides that this is a masculine way of living or a feminine way of living? Like Scottish men wears kilts, right? And yet, if you look at how North American society is, okay, we won't find a man wearing a skirt necessarily, right? But it's just that somewhere we have decided that this is how it is.
Yeah, Swati, that's all, that's
I mean, if I may, Arvindji, just one small thing, but yes, I mean, that's spot on. But again, I'm saying that, how sometimes I feel that, just to say, have a narrative around toxic masculinity can have a lot of on the nose kind of elements that if you begin on that note, here, for example, definitely in that relationship, for example, again, self-obsessed much. My favorite scene in the film is when Samiya is peeling those almonds and he is supposed to go recite a naat, and she takes over. She's the alpha there. She shames him and she coaches him, right? She really treats him like a child and, she's directing him. Now, again, I do not want that scene to become like, like a label for their relationship. It's a moment in their relationship where, she's not ungrateful. Like he takes her to the latrine. He brings her back, like he really is like, this dedicated husband. But in that moment, she's like, no, I know it better than you, I am someone who knows the sur more, or maybe I am someone who can teach you a little thing here and there, So I do feel that, how, again, I mean, I'll connect it back to out of context, So hence, I feel that how feature films need to be looked at or how they need to be studied if they have to be studied, it still needs to be a larger picture. We still need to be very zoomed out because the moment you start zooming in, sometimes it is very unnecessary dissection that might just, sure, I mean, it's for books, it's for academia, it's for, I mean, that's what we do. I mean, we should definitely do that. But just for, say, discourse and communication, I feel that, if one hasn't chosen to make a music video or a short film, or if it's not a tweet, or if it's not an Insta story and it's a feature film, then of course it took years to make. And the narrative also, could have developed in that kind of, real time, Yeah. So.
Yeah. Thank you for, explaining this. And, Swati, this question and many more questions about this Zindagi Tamasha, how it happened, and thanks to Sapan, and thanks to Malinde, thanks to Lubna, thanks to Mandira, and thanks to Ekta, and thanks to Beena, thanks to Shara, because all it's their efforts, the efforts of the Sapan, that we could get Sarmad and Samiya here on the panel and, touch those layers. There's another quick question from Zishan Shah. He says, hello, everyone. Lovely to meet everyone here. Certainly an emotional and impactful movie. Now, quick question. This one from my wife, not my wife, Zishan's wife. For the character of Farkhanda, when they were both practicing the Naats, was there a message that Zishan is there? Oh, come on. Of course,
Yes,
you can raise your question yourself.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. For context, I grew up in Karachi myself as well, and we watched the movie like a night ago. And my wife had a very emotional reactions watching the movie, me as not as much. But I understand the context that, the movie was about deeply. So this is a good segue in this question. The question that was being raised, and Sarmad, you raised that scene, was there a message or discussion in the script that although the character for Kanda has a better naat, but given our environment, given the Islamic traditions, like the woman will never lead the naats? Was that the thinking behind the discussion?
Can I just jump in here? Sorry, Sarma.
Please do, Samir.
When we were reading the script again, this is something that came up, that it's not just about religious naat or anything associated
recitation,
with recitations. Even in gharanas of classical music, the men traditionally are the ones who perform publicly, but the women in the family often have an equal amount of musical knowledge. And this is something I've seen where while the men are doing their riyaz, one of the female members of the family will say, and she'll actually point out the correct sur or the correct bandish or wherever there's been a lag. So this is it's very real. It's not necessarily a message, but it is a representation of our reality.
I understand. That resonates, because what it does provide also is an idea that, look, it's not about the common question that was what I reacted to, right? Like, yes, that is the discourse that why women cannot lead namaz and all these. That's a discussion which goes, but you are completely right that there is a better orator in the room for coaching, and women do have that role. So that helps. The second question.
If I may add to that, sorry, Zishan. So, but I mean, on television and on radio, we have had like female naat reciters, like some of the leading singers, like Mehnaz Begum's mother used to be a great Noha Khwa, and then she also, recited naats. And then Umme Habiba was like a big star in that way. So that way, it's not banned. I'm just saying in naat recitation is still where women are allowed, so to say. I mean, what an odd thing to say, just feels incorrect and wrong. But yes, I mean, on TV even, you have female naat reciters.
The keyword that you use is was. And I think that goes into the discussion of my second question, is that as the discourse in the society these days, it's very hard to have an open conversation on the topics that you raise. It's not an easy at all. And I can feel that, some of the challenges that you had, like religious scholars were like, okay, this is presenting us in a negative view, although completely real and practical. Like I felt very scared when the blasphemy question was being raised up, when the slogan. We were watching the movie, but it is like a transition. So how would you advise younger aspiring people, and not just film, like think about like comics or things, or like online stuff? Like there's a lot more generative AI things happening with all these like different things now. How would you advise to it's very easy to run away, but as you went through it and had the courage to go through it, so how would you advise?
I tell them not to come to me for advice, first of all. I'll tell them to really figure it out on their own. I'm sure they're far more intelligent and talented. But if I have to now say that what was a bad move, I'm not saying wrong or right? I think, again, trailers are very sort of out of context usually, right? Now with this film, I was like, it's an indie film. We are talking about a lot of things, but then the first trailer that sort of got us into that trouble, they picked those lines and really like shredded them and used each shred to whatever advantage they wanted it to be off to them, For example, leave the line about, say, blasphemy. Of course, and also, so I think as a viewer, if I were to watch this film where the whole idea was, oh, the filmmaker went through this, the film was controversial, the film was really pinned like a film which will have a narrative about, blasphemy, etc. It's actually disappointing. It doesn't talk about that much. It hints on that. People said, oh, this film is about, how the madrasa sexual abuse happens. No, the film doesn't talk about that. It's only a situational comment or a dialogue or an exchange, And again, but since those things were, say, very tightly put together in a trailer, it really gave like a more, like the punch was a little extra than it should have been. If that's one lesson, do not put a lot in the trailer, to be honest, That is one lesson. It's a very technical lesson, to be honest. I still feel that Zindagi Tamasha's first trailer is a great lesson in trailer editing, because how people had their fancy imagination about, and just the poster also, just that poster where, the daughter character is standing behind him and putting that shawl on his head. People were like, this film is about incest, and this is about this father and daughter, So they had like a field day with that. Now what I'm coming to is that in the trailer, for example, the DVD store guy, he says something to the effect that, what was the last film of Asia's that you watched? Now Asia is almost like, what would Asia be? Like how they had, like they as in India, for example, if there was an Asia parable, I would say, a Bindu or a Aruna Irani, great dancer and a good actor. So Asia was a big star and not a, like a fictional name. And there was this whole campaign about that this trailer is talking about Asia BP. Now you take that line out of context. He's inside a DVD store. It's a DVD guy. So see, Asia the aakhri film kedi dekhi si. So that they connected with the last line of the trailer, or the film also hints at blasphemy. Now it is not about Asia, the actress, it's Asia Bibi. So, I'm just saying it was just crazy. So my only sort of, 2 cents here would be that, yes, trailers should be communicative. Trailers should be intriguing. I firmly believe that, honestly, I feel even Hollywood and Bollywood both have somehow stopped making good trailers. It's summaries, it's really long, they put everything in it, there's nothing left for you, and hence we are relying on money and production only. But for smaller films which are offering a narrative, which is, say, personal, not good or bad or whatever, they need to have some intrigue, You would still want to spend those 2 hours and not know everything about the film through the trailer. I have not seen good trailers in a long time, to be honest, both from Bollywood, which is a big, market, and then Hollywood also. Hollywood has started making really bad trailers, I feel. Zindagi Tamasha was a good trailer. It intrigued, but intrigued way beyond it was necessary, I feel. So don't cut trailers which pique so much interest,
Yeah, thank you, Zishan, for this lovely conversation with Sarmad and question. Like, we are about 5 minutes closer to our conclude the program, and there's a suggestion from a friend of Beena. Yeah, please go ahead. Now this is for Samiya. Samiya, before I ask you to share your visits and tours to India and Bangladesh for the theater performance, is I think probably with Ajoka and the recent web series on the Z5. So, there was a suggestion from a friend of Beena that why not to showcase this film in New York and US as a fundraiser? Yes, why not? Why not? You organize this and I'll come to US. So, Samiya, can you share some of your experiences while crossing over the border and doing performance in India and Bangladesh, while you were doing theater?
Sure. I have a feeling that if you saw Uzra Pupi and Zora Pupi's performance at the Natshala in Amritsar, I was part of that too.
Yeah.
Because we used to bring this play that was very close to their own real lives, of two sisters separated in between Pakistan and India, and how both of them, one of them had suppressed her acting career and the other one had become very successful in that. So it was very interesting when we used to take this play to the places they had actually performed in. For instance, in Bombay, the Kapoors, I'm so bad with names. There's this auditorium built by Raj Kapoor.
Prithvi Theatres.
Prithvi Theatres. So when we went there, there was memories galore for both these sisters, that all the younger actors who hadn't experienced this kind of thing before, were really enriched by what was happening to both of them. Because there you had Shashi Kapoor telling stories about how when he was a 6-year-old and playing the son of Uzra Pupi, and Uzra Pupi forgot her lines. And he apparently said, Amma, तुम मुझे ये नहीं कहने वाली थी कि मंदिर की घंटी चोरी हो गई है? And they went into peals of laughter, but because these were memories that they had not aired for a good 40 years or something.
Right.
And then this was happening in front of us. So these excursions into neighboring countries were wonderful memories. And there were so many instances. I mean, there's so many things happen. For instance, I remember twice, two of the people on our team, as Joka Theatre members, went to their ancestral villages, only to discover that their families were not from the religion that they had assumed that they had always been in. They didn't know they were converts. And these were huge, sort of earth-shattering kind of, events for them. And we were there to witness this. This was history, sort of on a human level, unfolding in front of us, and how they dealt with it. Mama ji sanu mile, but Mama ji was not who he thought he would be, So it was just very, very real and palpable, and things were unfolding in front of us. It was like we were in the middle of a movie and we didn't know what the plot would be. Mm-hmm. So yeah, every time, I mean, when we went to Bangladesh, I remember, to Dhaka, we would all sit around. We'd gone for theatre festivals whenever we went. So there were people from India and Bangladesh and Pakistan. And even if we weren't all fluent in the same languages, when we all sat down in the evenings with guitars and flutes, and we would all know the Bollywood songs without any flaws, and we would all be singing together. So those were occasions, obviously, when you felt, where is the difference? So they've always been wonderful, all our trips. And there was one point when we would visit India so much that I forgot how many times I'd been, because there was that little window when visas weren't so difficult to get. And I actually looked at my travel history, and there were 2 years where I had visited India more than twice every month. That was wonderful.
I know, same here. You know, when you used to come with Madiha and Sarang would stay back with me, and Madiha would travel, the country. And like we are almost to the closing point, and I would, Ekta has a question in her mind, and since she is a tech host, and she deserves that question to be asked. So Ekta, please come over.
Hello. I managed to watch the film, and I think I'm one of the few Indians in the room today. So I take some responsibility of representing my side. But for me, the film, like, it was devastating, and at the same time, it was uplifting because of the art and the beauty of the way everything came together, and devastating, of course, because of the subject and how, something that is about your identity is converted into something larger, and something that he's just trying to express his creativity, or his love for the music, or his dance. It just becomes like a big and though I'm somebody who's never been to Lahore, and coincidentally my ancestors are from Lahore, but I've never been there, and for me it was like a real deep dive into those old streets and those parts of Lahore that probably my ancestors might be familiar with. So there was a sense of really understanding that culture, that life which my family has left behind. But more than that, what I found really interesting, and what you've just talked about, that it's the writer, the actors, the director, everybody coming together to create those so many nuances in the movie, so many gray areas. People are not black and white. There are just so many shades. At one point you like him, and at the other point you don't like him. Like, why did he just do that? Or, for anybody, even like for the daughter, she looks so like she loves her father, and then at the same time she's disapproving of him. So everybody's shown in these different shades, and like you said, everything comes together with the team. But were there any moments that just sort of came together on their own, and you look back later and you were like, wow, I didn't realize that I had managed to create that amazing moment, and you just realize that in retrospect?
All of it, Ekta, to be honest. I think unless one is working with, like, say, a studio where, what you have imagined and storyboarded, and then it looks exactly the same way. I think we were all very clear about, say, where we wanted to be, say, emotionally or aesthetically, but there were a lot of choices that we had to make, like, really on the go. There were lots of moments. For example, again, film is quite unlike theater, where you're not given that enough time to, say, go inside the character or feel it enough, And here we had long takes. Like, anytime I think I thought that something didn't work, it was not just about, how to explain to the actors that, what went wrong. And sometimes it wasn't wrong. It was just, like, it just didn't feel correct. And it's a take which is about 3.5 minutes long. And I don't want to go and tweak and, micro direct performances. So I think it's sort of, when I do feel that, if everybody has that niyat to make the same film, and it's not about, we are here to prove a point. For example, for a cinematographer, to be honest, this is the same guy who has done Manto with me. This is the same guy who has done Shahrazad with me. Khizr Idris is his name. And he's done, like, mainstream films for Shoaib Mansoor and Hum TV, For him to just sort of, stand there and not do anything with his camera, I think it was a challenge. Like, he would ask me, kuch nahi karna camera ko. Maine kaha, haan, kuch nahi karna, let it be, Like, and he's like, but, how everybody, so it was not easy, like, bringing, and Nirmal Bano, my writer, was also one of the assistant directors, and we had this quiet thing going on, I would just look at her, happy with the take, and, sometimes she'd be happy, but sometimes she would just look the other way. And, just getting to that equation, sometimes I would like to entertain what she's thinking, but sometimes I was like, no, I don't have time. I'm not entertaining. I'm not looking at you, So just that mutual sort of respect that if one were to say it in a very plain sort of way, I think there was no diva on set. And that really helps. I think if you have a diva in the whole mix, that's when the mess starts happening. We had problems. We had days, For example, the posters that he rips, the art director got the wrong posters. And we had been working on the film for about a good year, micro, doing everything in pre-production. And I had like a big lash out. I was like, how could you get the posters wrong? So the posters that were finalized were not printed, and we just had 2 stacks that could be used, So I just had 2 takes. And that was my DOP, by the way. I thought that was a simple scene. He comes to his house, he looks at that, he rips it, and there's some drama, and then he goes in. But he says, no, real time, because there's no cut in that. His bike comes in, the camera follows him. That scene is about 3.5 minutes of just the camera being with him, When he goes and knocks at the neighbor's door, the distant neighbors, why haven't they sent him an invitation? That was really like all across those 5 streets where we had to plant people who would not look into the camera. And also, bhai, matlab, लोग हमेशा खवातीन की बात वैनिटी और खूबसूरती में करते हैं मुझे लगता है उनकी स्ट्रेंथ की बात कोई नहीं करता this would have been possible sorry nepotism आएगा so my sister produced it I think it wouldn't have been possible without her वो वहां पे खड़ी हो जाती थी बस और फिर किसी की हिम्मत नहीं होती थी सड़क क्रॉस करने की या कैमरे में देखने की so I think it was just like a lot of good-hearted talented and brave people and who had that capacity to own. For example, I just quote one small thing and just move on. Like, for example, सुबह हम जब वहाँ पे आते थे, this is अंदरून लाहौर, जहाँ पे नालियाँ खुली हैं, जिनमें से, सब गन बला जा रहा है, Just the 3rd day, I realized कि यार जब भी मैं यहाँ पे आता हूँ, गली वाले मुझे जानते हैं, लेकिन जब मैं नाक पे हाथ रखता हूँ, तो सारे एकदम से हो जाते हैं, भाई आप हमारी गली में भी आ रहे हो, So the 4th day I started practicing, नहीं, मैं यहाँ पे इन जैसा बन के अब दिखाता हूँ, So, just those small things, how they then, because you are actually borrowing and stealing from them. So it's owning the mohallas, owning all of that, I still feel, I wish the controversy only has overshadowed all the beautiful memories that actually were what Zindagi Tamasha
It's a beautiful
about.
film. Yeah. And in fact, I'd love to even know what Samiya has to say. Was there any scene when she looks back and she was like, wow, I did that? Or, was there any scene that really blew you away, when you saw it later?
There was so many scenes that I was not part of that blew me away. And because reading the script, you don't really know how they've been shot and how they will feel. And there's so much visual in the film that you don't necessarily get a sense of that just by looking at the script. So yeah, looking at the film and then feeling that it pulls you in, you feel immersed in that. There's a pace to it and you feel you've also aligned to that pace. It's an experience, really. And yeah, I enjoy that very much. But what I was thinking when Sarmad was talking was that when there was, in the same way as the characters were not labeled, neither were the emotions given names, but it was a very intangible thing that you wanted to achieve. And we weren't always sure that we were delivering. So I know that I had to look at you every time to see, has it landed or are we off? I was never quite sure if I'd done anything right or not.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Ekta. And, before we conclude, there are 3 feelings and my expressions. Please turn on your camera so that we can have a group picture. And that's a request from Beena. 2, Samiya, thanks to your parents, Kamil Khan Saab, and of course, Samiya Mumtaz Sahiba, for bringing you to this world so that we can meet you, we can see you, we can hear you, we can explore your talent, we can do I think probably what really Sapan really deserves to be. And like our Mumtaz Saiba is an integral part of the Sapan and advisory group also. And thank you so very much for being here. And Sarmad, thanks to you and thanks to your parents. Irfan Sab is like, I know him for the last almost 25 years, since the time I got associated with NCA. And that was my first encounter with Irfan Sab and your sister, I think probably at Shenaz Malli's house, close to that canal view, I think probably
Yes.
that was the area. And in fact, thank you, Sapan. Thank you, Beena, for taking all of us on the board. And thanks to Lubna, thanks to Mandira, thanks to Malinde. And, that was, I don't know, I'm literally overwhelmed. And, I'm emotional at the moment. I'm falling short of words. And I really wish to hug all of you in one go and say a big thank you to all of you. Thank you so very much, all the participants, all the who's raised questions and touched the different layers of Zindagi Tamasha. And I promise you, Sarmad and Samiya, you come to India and I'll host your premiere.
Invite us.
Always.
I think get us a visa is a more valid demand.
I know.
While you're at it, please make it a multiple entry for life.
Yes.
And thank you once again for being here. And I would request कि जिन्होंने अभी तक donate नहीं किया सपन के लिए for this fundraising program, please do come forward and contribute for this wonderful cause, for the soft borders and for the peace and harmony in the South Asia. Thank you. Love you all and Allah Hafiz from India.
Khuda Hafiz. Thank you.
Rabra.
Khuda Hafiz.
Rabra.